Hello everyone, I am Ajinkya Redkar. I am the co-author of CISA Guide for Techies and Non-Techies. So last week I posted a question on LinkedIn on 27th of March. It was a very tricky question and only a handful of people got the answer right. Majority of the people got the answer wrong. I can even show you the statistics. So most of the people selected option D and only a few people selected the correct answer. Now stay tuned to know what exactly is the correct answer and why I think option D is wrong. Before we go into the answers, let's first understand the question. The question says that the IS auditor is auditing a system where a generic admin account is used by multiple named people. What is the best recommendation to ensure individual accountability is maintained? Now, the main part here to note is best recommendation to ensure individual accountability is maintained. The four options which we have is implement a manual sign-in, sign-out logbook next to the server console. The next option which we have is require admins to change the shared password after every use. Third option which we have is implement a formal checkout and check-in process for the shared credentials. And the fourth option is enable detailed system-level logging of all active actions performed by the admin account. Now, before I tell you what is the correct answer and why D is the wrong answer, let's deep dive into the concepts related to this question. The four concepts are generic ID and the accountability. What is accountability in identity and access management? Linking activities to identities and handling shared accounts. All these four concepts are covered within these sections within our CISA guide for techies and non-techies. Now, if I break down each of the concept, I won't go into the details of what is generic ID and all of that. What I have done is I have shared a snippet of the specific section from a book here, and I have marked the important part which relates directly to the question. So generic ID. Generic ID means an ID which is not named. Generic IDs can be, the examples can be something like admin, DBA, sysadmin, syslogs, and any kind of such accounts. Now, the reason for creating generic IDs can be multiple. Most of the times, those are created for system use, or those are created for teams who perform, uh, you know, routine tasks. That is the reason for creation of generic IDs. Now, what is accountability? By accountability, we mean that every action should have a specific owner. And how can each user own the action? The answer is by having named accounts. If the person has a named account, we can easily say that the activity performed by the named account belongs to that specific person. By this, we mean accountability. Accountability means, like I explained, you should be responsible for actions, for your actions, and we should know who performed those actions. The third concept, important concept for the question is linking activities to identities. Now, again, if we have, there are two parts, like we discussed, there are two kinds of accounts. First is, for this question, there are two kinds of account. The first is generic account and named account. And how do we link those activities? For the named account, it's very simple. The person whose name is appearing against the action, that person performed the activity. The person cannot deny that the activity was not performed by them. However, in case of generic IDs, it is difficult because if those actions are performed, the name appearing against the IDs belong to the generic ID. In that case, we don't know which human user actually performed that activity. That is why the next important concept within our book and important for this question is handling shared accounts. The important part here is for shared accounts to maintain accountability, there should be a formal checkout and check-in process. Now, what do we mean by checkout and check-in process? Practically, there are software available which are called as password vaults. What these applications do is if there is a generic ID and if a named user wants to access that generic ID, the human user has to use a password vault, which will give access, which will check out the account, which will give access to that generic ID to that human user. So what will happen? Let's say Ajinkya, I have to access a generic account named admin. What I will do is I will request the password vault to give me access to the generic account admin. That way I will, I will perform certain activities. Let's say at 22:46 on 31st of March, I requested for access to generic admin ID from password vault. Now, indirectly, we are able to link that Ajinkya performed certain activities with the help of generic admin account at 31st March 2246. That way, all the activities can be indirectly tracked for generic IDs. The issue was the risk in having generic IDs is that the accountability is missing. The logs are captured. The logs will tell us that generic IDs have performed certain activities, but it will be difficult to link them to specific persons. So by having checkout check-in process, we can, indirectly create that link of linking named account with generic IDs. Now let's go back to the question. I am assuming most of the people got the answer right, but let's go back to the question. The question says there is a generic ID, uh, individual accountability to be maintained, and what would be the best recommendation? Keep in mind the answer is best recommendation. So we can safely assume that all four are valid recommendation, but we have to reach the best recommendation. So let's break down each and every recommendation. First recommendation is implementing a manual sign in sign out logbook next to the server console. Now always remember, whenever there is human element involved, the control is likely to be failed. Most of the times, the control won't be practiced at all. What will happen generally, people will forget to write down their names before using the generic IDs. So, this can be a recommendation, but this doesn't seem to be a very good recommendation. So, let's rank this as fourth numbered recommendation for now. The second recommendation is require admins to change the shared password after every use. Now, this is also a good recommendation. In this case, what will happen is, you know, this is a tedious task of changing passwords after every use. Before, you change the password, you have to remember your old passwords. Multiple people have to share the passwords. There are chances that the people may forget to change the passwords when they are logging in. So that way, even if we change the password, it will be very difficult for them to link with individual users because there is no technical control here. Again, we are sort of relying on the manual control here. Now, the third option is implement a formal checkout and check-in process for shared credentials. Now, you have safely assumed that this is the right answer, so I'll come back to this later. Now, the last and fourth option is enable detailed system level logging of all actions performed by the admin user. Now, most of the people have answered this uh, and selected the answer as D for this particular question. Now, this is not the best recommendation because let's read the option again. Enable detailed system level logging of all actions performed by the admin account. Now, here we are saying we should enable detailed logging of all actions performed. Now, let's say we enable logs of all actions performed by the generic ID. The generic ID logs in at 10 a.m. on 31st of March. They post a journal at 10:01 a.m. on the same day. They log out at 10:02 p.m., 10:02 a.m. on the same day. Now, when we download the logs, when a reviewer investigates the logs, all they will see is generic ID admin logged in at 10 o'clock, generic ID admin posted a general, generic ID admin logged out at 10:02 a.m. How can we ensure that accountability is maintained? We don't know which human user performed the activity, right? I hope you got the point. That is why this is not the best option. Uh, Enabling the system logs will only tell us what activities were performed by the generic account. It can't tell us, and it is not able to establish accountability. It won't tell us how which user performed the activities. We can only know what activities were performed, but which user performed the activity, it will be a question for us to understand. That is why this is not the correct answer. Now, if we implement a formal checkout and check-in process, that will help us link individual accounts to generic accounts. I will explain it again. There are technical processes available, technical solutions available in the market through which generic accounts are linked. Now, if generic accounts are generally used by multiple people. So, whenever multiple people have to access the generic account, they have to reach out to the checkout process. Now, the individual person has to reach out to the checkout process. Once they reach out to the checkout process, the activity is immediately captured. And whenever all the activities will be logged till the time they check in through the technical solution, So from the time they check out, that is from the time they request access to the generic account till the time they check in, that is till the time they finish the activities, all the activities will be logged, and those logs can be linked to individual users. That is how we can create accountability for generic IDs. And this is the right answer. I hope uh, this helps you understand this difficult questions. If you have any queries on this question, you can reach out to me via LinkedIn, or you can leave comments on this section. Uh, our book contains many such scenarios which are difficult and which will help you understand the CISA exam as well as the practical guides. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn for details about our book. And if you want this Word document, you can leave a comment and I will share the link with you. Give me your views on how you like this explanation of this question. Uh, and that is all. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.